So you're coming to Purdue and you've got to figure out where to live. There's a lot of options in front of you. You can rent an apartment if you're a student. You can live in a dorm. Perhaps you can rent a house. But if you're coming to Purdue for any reason, have you thought about buying a house? Hi, I'm Geoff Gooch with the Russell Company, powered by App Properties. And if you're coming to Purdue for any reason, whether you're an undergrad, whether you're a grad student here pursuing your master's or your PhD or other professional degree, if you're a brand new minted associate professor, if you're a professor that's moving here with tenure, if you're a postdoc researcher, you got to figure out where to live. And like I said, there are a lot of options. Undergrads tend to live in dorms. If you're a freshman, it's pretty typical. And of course, PhD researchers, maybe are at the other end of the spectrum, might rent a house. And of course, there's a whole spectrum in between that. But let's talk about, should you buy a house? Because here's where that old adage really kind of comes in. You can pay somebody else or you can pay yourself. So if you're going to live in a dorm, the cheapest dorm at Purdue University is $2,582 per year. That's per year, not semester. Now, that is a triple with no AC and no connected bathroom. On the other extreme, this is official Purdue housing, is $18,170. And this is for a one-bedroom apartment for one person, so it's a private one-bedroom apartment with air conditioning. Now, this as at the Fuse apartments. Purdue does contract with some apartment buildings in West Lafayette because there are not enough dorms to go around. So some official Purdue housing are apartments. Now, let's do some simple math here. Let's go back down to that cheapest option, $2,582, $2,600. Assuming that you lived in a dorm all 4 years with no rate increases, that's $10,400. That's really probably not too bad of a deal. Consider that you're here for 9 months out of the year. If you're an undergrad, you're paying a little under $300 per month for housing. Now, on the most expensive end, you're paying around $1,000 per month if you're here for 9 months. Now, of course, the math works out a little bit differently if you're talking about summer school and 12 months. Now, if you live off campus, can you drive a car to Purdue University? And the answer is maybe. So you can get a commuter pass for $100 per academic year, and you can park in surface lot C spaces, which are indicated on red signs around the perimeter of the academic campus. Some of the lots include the Discovery Park lot at the south end of Gates Road and Nimitz Drive. There's some parking on the northwest of the Cordova Rec Sports Center, but that tends to be very busy. The north lot of Ross Aid on not game days, obviously. And there's a small lot on the south side of the Dowk Alumni Center. Again, not a huge lot, but that is something to consider if you do live on campus. If you live in a dorm or a close to campus apartment, you can walk, you can bike, you can rollerblade, you can roller skate. But if you live too far, then you're going to have to park. So you got to factor that in as well. Any registered student whose local place of residence, so when you're at Purdue University, is outside of the defined C permit, can apply for a C permit. And the C permit, boundary is this. Let me pull this graphic up for you. Give me just half a second here. So this is the C permit boundary. So it is the Wabash River to the east, down River Road where it intersects 231 down here on the south, the 231 bypass over here on the west, up to Cherry Lane on the north. So basically anywhere that's walkable. So the main academic campus is here in this area in the middle. You can actually see Ross-Ade Stadium right there. Most of the engineering buildings are right here. Here's MSEE. Here's Elliott Hall of Music. So anywhere in there, in this yellow area, you're not going to be able to register for a C permit. The residential areas in here that are not rentals are fairly limited. Now, there is the new neighborhood called Provenance here along State Street, along Daniels Boulevard. Some of those are available for rent, but not all of them. There are both homes and townhomes and apartments, but there's some there. There are some apartment buildings just off of McCormick and kind of up in this corner here. City Bus does run some bus service through there that the university contracts with. And then over here in Chauncey, there are some great neighborhoods with some great homes that you should consider buying. But if you do buy a house in this area here, then you are going to have to use human power or grab the bus to get to campus. But this is a really short walk. But if you're anywhere outside of that area, you are eligible to apply for a C-Pass. So that's a little bit about dorms. Now, apartments, Fuse, which is on the northeast side of campus, a one-bedroom apartment for the year is just under $2,000, $1,975. So $2,000 effective dollars. Rise, one of those giant new buildings, is $2,149 per month. So my previous figures that we were talking about dorms were years. So you go from $2,600 for the year for the cheapest dorm to the most expensive university residence at $18,000. The most expensive dorm, university residence that isn't an apartment, is First Street Towers, which is kind of an interesting mix. They are university buildings, university-owned buildings on campus that have suites connected in kind of communities, and they are $10,130 for the year, so around $800 based on a 12-month calendar, but I do believe that's on a 9-month calendar. And then we hop all the way up to the neighborhood of $2,000 for an apartment. That's $24,000 per year. $1,900, $2,100. Now, these are for one bedrooms, and the math works out a little differently when you talk about multiples, but it's still in the neighborhood of $800 to $1,200, even when you start talking about apartments with 4 people. The median rent in West Lafayette, and this is median for all of West Lafayette, so not just the Purdue area, is $1,900 per month. And in Lafayette, just across the Wabash River, it drops to a median of $1,200. So going back to our high school math, a median is the midpoint. So in that $1,200 figure, half of all rentals in Lafayette cost more than $1,200, and half of all rentals in Lafayette cost less than $1,200. So slightly different than averages, but I like medians more than averages because a big number or a small number can really throw off your average. A median tells you like where the middle of the market is. So middle of the market for rent in West Lafayette, and this is inclusive of apartments and homes and townhomes, it's housing of all styles, is $1,900. So just shy of $2,000 a month. So should you buy a house? Well, let's think about this for a second. So $1,900 a month. The median sales price in West Lafayette, so we're going to stick with West Lafayette for argument's sake through the rest of this. The median sales price in West Lafayette, $307,000. The median list price was $385,000. So there's a little bit of a delta between list price and sales price. Because the median sales price in all of West Lafayette, and this is stretching out to the borders of all of municipal West Lafayette, $307,000. Here's some example payments. With 3.5% down, which is an FHA loan, which is set up to help first-time home buyers, 3.5% down, so $3,500 per $100,000 purchased. So if we're talking about a $300,000 home, we're talking about just north of $10,000 in down payment. Your payment for mortgage would be $2,575. With 10% down, so the more that you put down, the less that you're actually financing. So if you could magically come up with about $31,000, then your monthly payment would be $2,372, $2,400. We're talking about $500 more than rent. But you're paying yourself equity the entire time that you live in that house. When you live in that rental, that apartment, that home with a bunch of other people, you're paying a landlord, so you could be paying yourself. Now, is it hard to come up with a down payment? It can be. There are down payment assistance programs that exist. There are all the way down to 0% down payments available. They don't apply in West Lafayette. You have to be in Tippecanoe County. The USDA loans that offer 0% down are in the rural areas outside of the city limits of Lafayette and West Lafayette. So that wouldn't apply here. But the state of Indiana does offer several down payment assistance programs. However, if you're the parent of a student, whether undergrad or grad, whether you're a family member that can gift some money that can perhaps buy the house and then rent it to your student, that is, an option you might want to look at. West Lafayette has some specific rental requirements here, but this is where we really kind of get into the math. So if you can come up with a down payment, the math can really make sense for you. So that payment, let's go with you come up with 3.5% down. Your payment is $2,600 a month. In West Lafayette, the rule is for a single family home zoned residential, you can have up to 3 unrelated people living together. So that means that you yourself or your student, if you're a parent buying for a student, and then 2 other people can live there. So basically you could break up that payment 3 ways. You could make your own payment, and then 2 of your friends could pay you rent. Or you could find 2 other people to pay you rent. So you're going to take that $2,600, divide by 3, and you come up with about $860 in rent. And that gives you a private home with your own private rooms, bedrooms, living room, all the attendant stuff that comes along with a house. I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, would it make more sense if you could squeeze more people into a house? Yeah, absolutely. But West Lafayette has a law in the books that says 3 unrelated people living together. That's just the way that it is. Now, that doesn't apply in Lafayette, but let's stick to West Lafayette for now. So this really kind of depends on how long you're going to be staying in West Lafayette. So, of course, the typical undergraduate program is 4 years, and Purdue's graduation rate is just off the charts. They've really focused on that in the last decade or so, on increasing graduation rates and graduating in 4 or 5 for those programs, for those specialty programs that need that 5th year, but it's for those programs that actually need the 5th year as opposed to somebody, being a super senior. Then you have lots of masters, and most of the time to completion is 2 years for a master's program. And then you get into PhDs and other professional doctorate programs. And just as an example, the degree completion rate for PhDs, which doesn't speak to all, but I think is a good representative number, 51% complete their PhD in 6 years. So most PhDs that are being completed are doing it in that 5 to 6 year period. So you could be at Purdue if you're gonna do a bachelor's and a master's and a PhD. Hey, look, I gave myself a thumbs up. I have no idea how that happened. If you're going to give yourself a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD, 4 years for bachelor's. Add 2 more for master's, that's 6. Add, let's go conservative, 5 more for PhD, and you're at 11. If you're here for 11 years, that's 1/3 of a 30-year mortgage. You should buy a house. How do you come up with a down payment? There's lots of ways to figure that out, but 1/3 of a mortgage can be paid off in that time. Now, not a lot of people complete all 3 parts of their advanced program at the same school. Some people do, absolutely, but not everybody does. So if you're here for a master's program only for 2 years, that's probably the one where the math doesn't make very much sense. You're only here for 2 years, you're in and out. If you're an undergrad, should you buy a house? Well, if you're in a position that you can come up with a down payment, and we can help you figure that out, if you need help figuring that out, if you're interested at all in any of this, reach out to me. My contact information is below. You can call or text me at 765-413-6190, or you can email me. All of my information is in the description below. But if you're an undergrad and you're going to be here for 4 years, that is about 15-16% of a mortgage. That ain't nothing. That's a pretty good chunk. A pretty good bite. And how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So rather than sinking money into a dorm, into an apartment where you're never going to get that money back, consider sinking that money into purchasing a home. Now, homes closer to campus going to be more expensive, of course, and maybe you're going to have to go a little bit further away, and you are going to have to factor in, transportation expenses if you've got a car maintenance and all of that. But, chances are you're going to own a car anyway. And if that's the case, then, those kind of just cancel out. And you also have to think about meals. And buying a meal plan at Purdue might work out to be cheaper than cooking for yourself, but it is still an investment. You still have to pay for it. And you can get meal plans as an off-campus student. So, doing that is not out of the question. So if you're an undergrad, if you can at all have family help you come up with the down payment, parents, if you want to buy the house as an investment for yourselves, for your retirement, you can basically be paying into your own retirement fund, and that you're buying a house and paying into that mortgage, and have some roommates help pay into that mortgage, and then you can sell it either when your student is done, or you can hang on to it as rental. And we can help you manage that rental as well once your student leaves Purdue, if that interests you. Then you've got an investment, not just in the now, not just in college and the university, but in the future. So I really think it makes a lot of sense for an undergrad. Now, if you're a PhD, I almost think it's a no-brainer. Of course, everybody's situation is unique, and you've got to do the math for yourself. But think about it, if you're here for a 5-year PhD, why throw away almost $2,000 a month on an apartment? Or if you're here, a lot of PhD students, being the time that it takes to get to PhD, of course, have families coming with them, wives, husbands, partners, kids, so you're going to be renting a house anyway. Rather than paying somebody else $1,800, $2,000, $2,200 for their house, pay yourself that money in your own home. Again, down payment can be that hurdle, and I keep repeating it because I like to be honest and transparent. Buying a house is not just a snap of a finger. There is there is a process and there is work to be done, but there are ways to do it. And if you're fortunate to have access to some cash where you can put together a down payment, then fantastic. But if not, there are ways to do it, and I'd love to talk to you about the possibilities. But if you're going to be here for a PhD, you should seriously think about it. So if you're coming to Purdue, should you buy a house? Should you live in a dorm? Should you rent an apartment? Or should you rent a house? I think that we have definitely come to the conclusion, I've come to the conclusion at least, that if you can swing it, buying a house makes a whole lot of sense, especially from the perspective of paying yourself and investing in the future and getting other people to invest in you, because it may not just be you. It might be, your friends and your colleagues that are paying into your own future. So if you're coming to Purdue, if you're a professor, if you're a postdoc researcher, if you are an undergrad, if you're a freshman coming here for the first time and your family is interested in perhaps buying a house here in the West Lafayette area to be close to Purdue, if you're a master's student at Purdue, I'd love to talk to you about the possibilities. Please do reach out, and if this video has been of any use to you, please take a moment and like and subscribe. It really helps you out, helps us out. There are lots of topics in our video library about the area and fun things to do and information about the area. So again, I'm Geoff Gooch with the Russell Company, powered by @Properties.